Describe time for this wonderful joining of minds. So let's get started. It is I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Reno-Sparks Convention Visitors Authority Board of Directors meeting for July 26th at 9 a.m. At this time, Mr. DeLone, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Caraselli? Here. Mr. Dillard? Mr. Lawson?
Here.
Mr. Lucy?
Here.
Mr. Murdoch?
Here.
Mr. Sturbins?
Here.
Mayor Sheeby? Here. Mr. Wood?
Here.
Mr. Wowell?
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It looks like we have a full quorum this morning. All right. Next, I have public comment. Is there any public comment at this time, or any of those who would like to speak from the floor? All right. Seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Are there any changes? We're on to approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda this morning? Mr. DeLone, members?
No changes, sir.
Okay. Seeing no changes to the agenda, looking for a motion to approve.
Motion.
I have a motion from Mayor Sheeby.
Second.
Second from Mr. Wowo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're on to item D, approval of minutes of the June 28th, 2018 Board of Directors regular meeting. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Motion from Mr. Murdoch, second from Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're moving right along this morning. On to E, presentations. Mr. DeLone, we'll go to EMC research presentation.
I'd like to
Jennifer,
introduce and bring up Sarah Labatt from EMC Research. This is a research firm that we use out of Oakland to conduct our visitor profile studies and our ad effectiveness. And we just completed a biannual look into the new markets that we're advertising in, including Northern California. And without further ado, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you. And this presentation will email out to all of our board members following the meeting today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm Sarah Labatt, principal with EMC Research. I brought my colleague Ben Richter here with me today, who's done a lot of the work behind what you're going to see. So I'll go through this. This is a summary report. We do have a fuller report that we've provided to Jennifer that will be available to you as well. This is just a summary of the sort of highlights. So we've been doing brand tracking about the Reno Tahoe brand for a couple years now. We've been working with you for about 10 years, but this particular campaign we launched with a baseline survey back in 2017. This is our second tracking survey, so we started with the baseline. You launched your new campaign, then we've been tracking it about every 6 months. This is our second tracking survey. As you look at this report and our full report, anything marked with a red asterisk denotes a statistically significant change over time from the last survey to this survey. So as you go through, you can sort of keep that in mind. We did about 1,000 interviews in the Bay Area, about 900 in LA, and 451 in Seattle. And we oversampled in your advertising target, meaning the population that's targeted with your ads and your ad buys. So you can see the samples for those for the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and Seattle as well. So really the idea is to look at how is the brand image changing, how is perception changing with exposure to advertising, both in the overall populations in those three markets, as well as with your targets for your advertising. So first of all, have you seen or heard anything about Reno Tahoe lately? You can see the Bay Area on the left, the Los Angeles market in the center, and Seattle on the right, and the three surveys over time. So we see about 65% in the Bay Area saying that they've seen or heard something about Reno Tahoe lately. That's up from our October survey. LA and Seattle, no significant changes there, but people, about half of each of those markets say they've heard something about Reno Tahoe lately. When we overlay the ad target, so this is just that subpopulation of people that your ad buys are targeting to hit, you see a higher awareness of Reno Tahoe, 76% in the Bay Area, up from October 65% in LA and 64% in Seattle, a significant change from October there as well. So certainly a little more effective with the people you're targeting with your advertising, which is what you should want to see. We exposed the sample after we asked them kind of an unaided awareness that we just saw. We exposed them to some pieces of the campaign. So it's kind of a sampling of the campaign. We played a television ad for them. This was all done online. We played a radio spot for them, and we showed them some of the graphics that come up maybe on billboards or digital ads. So this is kind of a sampling of what we showed them. And then we asked them if they remembered seeing any of these things recently. So the left is the overall, and the right is the ad target. So you can see about a third of each market recalls seeing at least one, seeing or hearing at least one of those ads. You can see it's up a little bit with the overall in the Bay Area and Seattle. And then with the ad target, you can see from October to April change in all three markets with that target, up to about 50% of each ad target remembers specifically seeing or hearing one of the advertisements we showed them in the survey. And then we asked them, people who recall seeing the ads, we asked them if they did any of a list of things as a result of seeing the ads. So the list is there on the right. It includes things like visited the website, ordered a planner, liked it on Facebook, followed on social media, etc. You can see people, this is just with the ad target who recall seeing the ads, more people in each market reporting having done one of those things after seeing the ads. So the campaign's been in market now over a year, and certainly the repetition, keeping that campaign consistent in these markets, we're seeing more effect with the ad target that you've been targeting with the buy. We also asked them how seeing the advertising has impacted their travel plans and gave them kind of a list of things to select from. On the left, convinced me to consider a trip, that's in the green. The dark blue confirmed the decision already made to visit Reno Tahoe. The pale blue caused me to lengthen my stay or visit additional things. No impact, and helped decide not to visit. So you can see with the target in all three markets, Bay Area, LA, and Seattle, all of them are saying it made an impact on their travel plans. You can see in the Bay Area and LA, it's more likely to convince them to consider taking a trip to Reno Tahoe. And when you look at Seattle, a little bit farther off, you see more of them saying it confirmed a decision I've already made to visit. We also ask about opinion of the brand, the destination brand. And this has been really consistent ever since we've been working with you. People generally have a positive view of the brand. This is with the overall population, so not just the target, and certainly a strong favorable rating. We asked them favorable or unfavorable opinion in all three markets, quite high. And then we overlay the target. You can see just a little bit higher with the target. It's hard to go up from something that's in the 80s already with the smaller population, but certainly really strong brand ratings with your target market. And we've been seeing that consistently over the last 3 surveys. We also do a little bit of sort of segmentation analysis where we look at potential visitors. So we kind of take their self-reported visitation habits and their interest in visiting and desire to visit, and we create sort of a segment. There's 2 pieces of it. The dark blue is short-term potential visitors, meaning they say they want to visit Reno Tahoe, and they say they plan to visit Reno Tahoe in the next 2 years. And then the longer term say, I want to visit, but I don't have a short-term plan to visit. I'm not going to visit probably in the next 2 years. So these are exclusive categories. You can see in the Bay Area, about 69% are short-term potential visitors. They want to visit. They say they plan to visit in the next 2 years. LA about 56, 45 in Seattle. Then the longer term visitors, especially from LA and Seattle, there's a few more of them. When we overlay the target, again, this advertising target, we see, as we would hope and expect to see, more short-term potential visitors, right? More people who say, yes, I would like to visit there, and yes, I plan to visit in the next 2 years. We see a little bit fewer longer-term visitors, but what we really want to see with this target is more people closer to making that decision to actually visiting the market. So a couple of conclusions, and then I'm happy to take any questions. We're seeing that key brand and ad metrics improving across all 3 of the markets we're testing in, and particularly in your target populations, the ones you're targeting with your ad buys. We see high ad penetration with the target. So certainly thinking about how effective is that your advertising buys in these markets. We see good penetration with that target of the awareness of seeing the ads. And people who've been exposed to the ads do respond favorably. About 4 in 5 in each market report having taken an action in response to seeing an ad. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bat. Is there any questions from the board right now? Mr. Murdoch.
Is there anything that sticks out in your research that these people, when you do interview them, ask about Reno Tahoe? Is there any specific thing that we hear a lot of? The same thing? Do you hear the word air service convention? Do you hear gaming? Do you hear, what do you hear? Is there some kind of a?
Sure. So just to be clear about the methodology, this is an online survey. We don't no one gets to talk to us. We don't talk to them by voice. We also don't have a lot of open-ended questions that we might have like in qualitative research where we ask questions like, when I say Reno, what comes to mind? We have done that research for you in the past. And we've heard a lot of perceptions about Reno. I think one of the things that we've seen pretty consistently is that people sort of say, yeah, I have a generally positive opinion, but then when you ask, well, what do you know? They don't necessarily, and we have a lot of other questions in the survey we're not showing today about sort of the depth of their knowledge about the destination. We ask a set of brand attributes, in addition to, is a place I want to visit. We ask, it's a place to take my family, is a place, with, is fun, has a mix of urban and outdoor activities. So we have a lot of other data about it, and what we see is that people are very aware that it's an outdoors-oriented destination. It's a place with urban and outdoor activities, so sort of the mix of activities that you have here is a good value, is also pretty high on the list of things people associate with Reno Tahoe. A place I can get to conveniently, high energy, thriving entertainment and nightlife scene. So we have a lot of sort of brand attributes that are associated with the destination that your advertising has been designed to drive those attributes. We're not seeing hugely significant changes in those attributes because they've always been pretty well associated with the destination. So we didn't show that today, but it will be in the full report. But certainly we see a lot of people aware that Reno Tahoe is a fun destination, has indoor and outdoor, urban and outdoor activities, nightlife, dining, entertainment, et cetera.
I could interject. In January, we're going to launch a visitor profile study, which will take the entire year, 2019. And we will be able to get a little bit more psychographic and research into what their thoughts are more specifically.
Mr.
Yes,
West.
was there any segmentation on media type?
We did some awareness of where they saw various types of media. I think the advertising, the media buy folks will have a better pin on that. This is really sort of the consumer's self-awareness about seeing ads. I'm seeing if I have the slide in front of me here about where they saw the ads. But we can get back to you because I think I don't have that right on hand. But we did do some questions about where did you see, what have you heard about Reno Tahoe and where did you hear that? So we can take a look at that.
Yeah, I think it'd be important because if we're successful in a certain area, we may want to go there a little bit more often.
Yeah, and I think we've seen recently here that the digital advertising tends to have one of the better effectiveness in terms of recall of the ads against the digital, but we can take a look and I think talk to the buyers as well.
Mr. Dillard.
Thank you. Thanks for the information. My question is, it certainly appears that we have high awareness and as a follow-up significant growth. How does the aided and unaided awareness as well as the growth after a follow-up like this compared to other campaigns or a standard campaign?
Sure. One of the challenges you have is that, in this survey research, we can ask people if they want to come here and we can ask people if they intend to come here. We can't sort of connect that to their future behavior. So really what we do with this study is understand, right, what are they saying they're going to do? And then we look at actual visitor statistics, and I think a little later you're going to see some visitor origination analysis, sorry. need more coffee. That will help sort of complement, I think, this, and we've looked back at some of the other work we've done in the old visitor profile studies against that as well. But to answer your question, I think, we do, I feel like we're seeing a lot of excitement about coming to the destination that is more than what we've seen in the past here for Reno Tahoe. More people saying they want and plan to visit in the next 2 years, which is one of those sort of key indicators of actual intent to act. I think that every destination is different, so it's hard to say, these results here versus those results there when the markets are different and the origins of the visitors are different. But I think we're seeing real change in that intent to visit question that I think is paying off and will pay off at a higher level moving forward as you stay consistent with your advertising and keep targeting these people that clearly are engaged in the ad campaign, do the things that they're seeing in the campaign, and it makes them want to act on that.
So maybe just to further clarify, so I forget which city it was, but it appeared one of the cities had growth from like 50% to 65%, which was asterisked as being statistically significant. And I guess part of my question is that 15% growth in intent to visit, I think it was, right? Is that level of growth, is that normal for growth in the maturity of a campaign, or are we above average as we're seeing intent to grow there? Kind of trying to gauge the effectiveness of that from that perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, this is on par with someone who's been in market for a year or so with your campaign. I think that one of the things we've learned here in Reno Tahoe is consistency with the campaign is important. It's been a while since you've actually gone into market with one campaign and stayed with it for a consistent amount of time. So I would say, it's on par with being in market for a year and a half, being consistent with those messages. I think what's harder to know is sort of how does that predict actual future visitation? Because, as I said, even if the numbers look similar or better than other markets in the survey research, that doesn't always mean due to all kinds of factors, the economy, politics, people's interest in traveling, right? There might be lots of other factors. So I think it's similar to what we've seen in other destinations in terms of been in market for a little while with a campaign, been consistent, have a target, spending money to deliver that message. It's pretty consistent with other places that we've done similar work in terms of the number of people that want to visit. So I think the next piece is, right, converting those people into actually making visits with, a piece of the campaign that targets these are the things that you're interested in, you like to do, or, continuing to show them the things that attract them and make them want to come. But I'd say consistent, to answer your question, consistent with what we've seen in other markets where their length of buy and the level of buy is similar. In crowded, you're going into 3 markets that are especially the Bay Area and especially LA, crowded markets. It takes a lot to have an impact. So what we're seeing is that in these big markets, you're spending enough money that they're paying attention, which is great news. So the next thing is, watching those visitation numbers and correlating that with the survey research.
And what Sarah just kind of passed over real quickly is this campaign that we've been working on for the last year has been definitely more impactful and effective than the prior RSCVA campaigns.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess that helps provide some perspective for me. When I saw 15, 17% growth, I'm thinking that's phenomenal growth, right? But
Right.
I think what I'm hearing is that is consistent with how we see other comparables. So we're performing as good as others, and 15 to 17% or whatever is probably what would be expected. Now the next step is conversion to visitation.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wovo.
Thank you, and thank you, Sarah. Quick question on the "Have you heard of Reno Tahoe lately?" Slide. Could you maybe explain to us the slight drop in the October in correlation to April was high and then October every market kind of dropped off? I may have missed it, but is there a reason for that, or was there?
Great question. So there are a few things, and I know we talked about this when we were up here 6 months ago a little bit. We showed the prior iteration and had exactly that question. So a few things we've always seen, and we've been doing research here for about 10 years, there's a pretty significant seasonal variation in kind of all the numbers about Reno Tahoe, favorable rating, awareness of the brand, all of the things, we see them go up and down in the spring. They tend to be a little higher. It's when you tend to be ramping up summer visitation campaigns. It's a little bit broader of a focus in the spring leading to summer versus the winter where it tends to, right, the October survey is sort of done leading into winter where the people paying attention to the destination might be, more winter-oriented travelers. So we tend to see that seasonal variation. I expect to keep seeing it, right? And what we're hoping to see is kind of the ratchet, right? We kind of bigger in April, maybe a little smaller in October, bigger again in April, right? To see it gradually go up that way. We also do have, margins of error at play. We have about 1,000 interviews in the Bay Area and LA, fewer in Seattle. So certainly sort of you can bracket around everything, the margin of error for each market. I think I don't have last time's presentation right here with me, but I think on this slide I've seen or heard anything about about Reno Tahoe. The change in the Bay Area from April 17 to October 17, I think was a significant change, but the change in LA was not. The change in Seattle was not, given the size of the samples. So there's a few factors at play. I think the seasonality, we can't quite say because we've only done April, October, April. We can't necessarily say conclusively that seasonality thing is a pattern in this set of research, but in the research we'd been doing before this new campaign, we certainly saw exactly this pattern of sort of a little drop in the October survey, up in the April survey. I don't know if you have, I don't have right on me like ad buy timing could certainly impact it as well. We try to stay really consistent with the timing of the surveys, so we're really looking at the big picture as opposed to trying to get right when everyone's going to remember it because you just finished a big buy.
Yeah, that's great. And just a couple more questions, just kind of following up on that. If we continue to see this trend, would you probably help us and advise us to maybe focus more on advertising heavily in those months where we're seeing good correlation to the ad campaigns? Would that be a suggestion that we should start looking into if this trend were to continue?
I mean, I think obviously we'd want to work with the folks doing the campaign and the buying. We're the researchers, but
right.
I think that we'd want to really the ad target is developed using a lot of variables, including some persona information and the kinds of things they like to do. Not necessarily seasonal, but like, do they see themselves as active adventurers? And I forget exactly all the questions that go into it. So I think one of the reasons we see, particularly with the target here. These changes is that I think that maybe those people that are focusing on visiting in the spring, summer, fall, right, in the warm weather, if you look at the ads that we were showing them, right, there's a fair amount of sort of outdoors. This is all sort of warm weather outdoors, right? There are, I think, ski-oriented, winter-oriented as well, but certainly, we'd want to think about that question in relation to what's the campaign communicating. Who is this group of people in the green that you're communicating with? Potentially use that to leverage, right, additional summer visitation, spring and fall visitation, those shoulder seasons where we all know the weather here is quite nice in those seasons, and maybe that's not always the season people are thinking to travel. But I think, our recommendation is and will continue to be pick a strategy, be consistent, go with, this seems to be working. So we would not say, looking at this data, you should change a whole lot.
Okay.
Rather, maybe make tweaks to your buy strategy and look at, this target seems to be responsive to the campaign. So how can you leverage that to really target this population and convert them into visitors in the short term, in the next year, in the next 2 years? So I guess to answer your question, I wouldn't say like you should dramatically change, but certainly looking at how can you sort of leverage these times when people are paying more attention, given what your campaign is, et cetera. So. Perfect.
And then really short, quick last question. The demographic, I may have missed that as well at the beginning. Do you have those numbers of demographic, age,
yes.
Gender, like all that good stuff? Just so we know like who's actually like picking up on this kind of stuff, because I think that's like an often missed opportunity.
Yeah. We ask a whole set of demographic questions, and we're providing you with all the crosstabs from that, and the full report has some breakdowns of that as well. So you'll be able to see all of that as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Willow. Any further questions? Ms. LaBelle, I have one quick question for you. And thank you for the presentation. With the brand campaign, the survey that it was done, was there a way to ask specific questions of all of the interviewers, that a way to differentiate the drive of the campaign to distinguish whether they were interested more in the Reno Sparks area versus the Tahoe region? Because the reason I asked, based upon the Bay Area the questions, the majority of those drivers, obviously Tahoe, they could be going to South Lake Tahoe, they could be going to Tahoe City or the Squaw Valley regions and staying in those, which we don't capture any of those benefit from that, but they benefit from obviously from our campaign. Is there any way to differentiate what those answers are going to?
Yeah, great question. We did have a set of questions about, because this is all online, we can use the visual aspect in the survey. So we showed them a map of the region and we broke it into we sort of drew lines on it, basically broke it into 4 areas. There's the Reno Sparks area, the Incline Village area, the South Lake Tahoe area, and the Truckee and North Lake Tahoe area. And we asked them to tell us if they visited each of those 4 areas distinctly, and also to give a favorable, unfavorable rating of each of those distinct areas, exactly to answer this question of, are they, and we're looking at that against their sort of responsiveness to the campaign. And what we see is that Reno Sparks, as an example in the Bay Area, 71% give a favorable rating of the Reno Sparks area specifically, as compared to, and that's from the Bay Area, 85% sort of Reno Tahoe as a whole. The South Lake Tahoe area, 87% favorable from the Bay Area, 78 for Truckee and North Lake Tahoe, and 72 for Incline Village area. So we do see, we've seen this consistently, the South Lake Tahoe area's ratings tend to be a little bit higher than if you break out Reno Sparks, you break out Incline, you break out Truckee. But we're not seeing sort of like, I love Tahoe, I hate Reno. We see pretty consistently positive ratings for all the areas, even when we break them out. So one of the things we're doing is sort of looking at the correlation between their change in those ratings for the specific areas and their exposure to the campaign, and whether we can see anything specific in there to answer the question about sort of regionality.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any further questions, discussion? Sarah, thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
All right. We are on to item E2, Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority staff update. Mr. DeLone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that it? Thank you. That's it. Good morning. Thanks for your patience. We're going to talk a little bit today about proactive marketing for large conventions. We have a tremendous amount of resources and tools at the RSCVA, and we have collectively brought those together to help our large convention and citywide convention clients be successful when they come here. Before we get into the data, let's take a quick look at the booking process. And I think for some of the former hotel salespeople in the room and members of our board, you'll understand this completely. The first step when we bring a piece of business to town is the solicitation of the account. That is why we have 8 regional offices around the United States, and those people, as well as the salespeople here at headquarters, are entrusted with soliciting corporations and associations in their respective geographic areas and encouraging those people to take a look at Reno Tahoe for a future convention. They then develop interest in the destination, and followed by that, the next logical step is to encourage that customer to come out and make an in-depth site inspection. Many of you have been involved in those site inspections over the years. From there, we face a little risk. After that site inspection, you have the possibility of rejection, that for whatever reason Reno Tahoe may not work for the needs of the association or the corporation, but more probably that group will then go to a tentative status, start negotiating room rates, looking at dates, availability of the convention center, and so forth. And then the next step in the process is the decision is made. That's typically done by senior executives within a corporation or at a trade association by a convention committee or an executive committee or a board of directors. There again, risk occurs at that point. You're either chosen or you're not. And those of you who come from the resort or convention authority sales background, you understand the feelings of rejection or victory. But then, assuming that you have victory, you then go to the booking and contracting of the group. The dates are chosen, the RFPs go out to the hotels, the room blocks are sought, the rates are negotiated, and the piece of business is put to bed. But then there's an enormous lag. Could be years between the booking and the actual consumption of that convention. And when you get to 6 to 9 months out prior to convention, there's risk for a destination and risk for our hotels and community, because now the tide turns. We, as a hotel destination or a convention authority or a city, you are relying on the strength and marketing acumen of the customer that is booking your convention to properly market and sell the destination to potential attendees. So what are some of those examples? Interbike comes to us in September, and what is Interbike doing today and over these months? They are marketing to their potential attendees to say, hey, come to this new destination. Come to Reno Tahoe. This is going to be a great experience for you. Your business is going to do well. You'll love it, right? But we as a destination, we are relying on those staff members in this hypothetical case at Interbike to be the advocates of our destination. So we, to protect ourselves, to ensure that these groups are successful and have a great experience, and most importantly, that they pick up their room block, we have developed a collection of tools for them to use. The first tool are custom attendance building videos. Some of the GMs in the room here were movie stars in the recent one we just did for Safari Club. We've done one for Interbike, and I think you should take a look at that and see what this tool is like. There we go.
Reno Tahoe is an outdoor community. We have great lakes and rivers and really unique geography, ranging from mountain forests to flat desert landscapes, providing hundreds of miles of roads and trails perfect for any style of biking. Our accessibility to the great outdoors is one of the reasons why Interbike Market Week is coming to Reno Tahoe. But closer to the city, we have some new amenities awaiting your arrival. In the last 5 years, Northern Nevada has changed quite a bit. The local economy is booming and tourism is responding to that growth. I'm standing here on the patio of the new Reno Renaissance, located next to the beautiful Truckee River in the heart of downtown. The Renaissance is one of many new select service hotels in the region and is proof that prominent U.S. hotel chains are seeing Reno Tahoe as an up-and-coming destination. In addition to new hotels, our larger casino hotels are looking better than ever. These traditional Reno resorts have invested more than $500 million. You'll see those upgrades in your hotel rooms, pools, spas, and of course, restaurants. Downtown Reno is quickly expanding southward with new shops, bars, restaurants, and live music venues. And a staple of the Reno wine community, Whispering Vine, is opening a new tasting room right here in Midtown. You're going to love Hardwater House. This is the region's premier cigar bar and whiskey lounge, featuring premium cocktails, upscale fine dining, and a relaxed atmosphere. This is a great place for you to come for lunch or to unwind after a long day. The revitalized Riverwalk district is extending west into a historic neighborhood, which has become a hotspot for businesses, coffee shops, and restaurants like the French-inspired Beaujolais Bistro. More than a dozen breweries have opened in Reno Tahoe since 2013. I'm in the old Reno train station where the depot became the first brewery and distillery to open anywhere in the state of Nevada. Midtown has some truly unique bar experiences like Death and Taxes. With the classic ambiance, specialty aged cocktails, and house-made bitters, they're restoring pride and excellence in the art of bartending. The entire business and active lifestyle community is eager to welcome you back to Northern Nevada. We can't wait to show you the new Reno Tahoe during Interbike Market Week 2018. See you on the trail.
So that video is now, has gone out to every possible attendee of Interbike to introduce them to our destination, and it also appears on social media as well. But in addition to that, being able to develop the custom attendance building videos, we also support all of these conventions now with social media platforms, other destination videos if they don't require a customized one. We have a library of destination videos that we share. Also photography. Jennifer and I had a conversation the other day and asked each other, in your entire career, how many of your customers have simply just asked for readily available photography? And it was everyone. And we now have a library. Christina reported a library of 10,000 photographs that clients can go through to create their collateral material and use our ready-made digital photography. We also support it with print and digital advertising. This, for example, is a full-page 4-color ad that appeared in Safari Club International's monthly newsletter. This is from the July issue. And this advertises our destination, gives the possible attendee websites to go to book their rooms and websites to go to research the air. And if you're questioning complimentary rooms, many of our resorts are offering, for this particular group, free rooms on Sunday. Why are we doing that? We know that with SCI, the attendee trickles in during the week, but on Sunday, everybody wants to leave town and has the potential to create more demand for air seats than actually exist, although we feel we have sufficient inventory. So for those who want to stay over and leave on Monday, many of the resorts have stepped up and provided complimentary rooms. And so this advertises that fact. And we also do create all of these in-house, and so we make it very, very simple for the client, because the client may be overwhelmed and doesn't have the staffing or the time to create these types of pieces. We also have a destination highlights brochure, public relations support through our own in-house staff and Decker Royal, and digital advertising as well. So we now have one-stop shopping for these types of tools. That makes choosing Reno Tahoe a successful choice for customers. I think we take a moment and introduce Dante Nicastro as the general manager, as you know, of Savor. And Dante, you have a few announcements to make today.
One announcement. Good morning, Dr. Nicastro, general manager. I'd like to introduce our latest executive addition to Savor. Straight out of McCormick Place in Chicago, just like me. Came a little more.
Good morning. My name is Neil Lord. I'm the director of food and beverage over at the Convention Center and beyond the other properties we have. I'm very excited to be here. Came from McCormick Place in Chicago, but originally from Southwest Colorado. So I'm excited to be a Nevada resident and make this my new home.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. And Art, you have an introduction also.
Of sales sector as well in Lake Tahoe, Squaw Valley, and the Reno area. Tammy has led sales teams at Harrah's Reno, Squaw Valley Resort, Tahoe Mountain Vale, and Heavenly Resorts in the past. We're we're very fortunate to have her on board. She'll be spending most of her time working in partnership marketing in the tourism sales department. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you, and I too am very excited to be here. I feel like I'm the new Reno. Not only am I proud to be representing the Reno Tahoe area, but I'm also moving to the area, and I can't wait because I spend so much time here anyway. So I'd like to thank the RSCVA and Art for bringing me on, and let you know that I look very forward to representing the area and bringing more and more room nights to our town.
Great.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you. All right.
That's it, Mr. Lucy.
you,
Rest of
Mr.
it's covered throughout the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Cunningham.
Okay, scorecard for May. There's just a few really nice stats I'd like to point out. May was a very strong month for us. Occupancy with the hotels up 2.6%. ADR hit $108.47, which was a 12.4% increase. And combined together, our overall tax revenue is up 14.6%. So great month for May. This week also marks the 1-year anniversary of when we launched our new website. So we'll be able to do year-over-year comparisons fairly soon when we start comparing July. Two other things. I'm going to circulate this MPI Meeting Professional publication. We have a great article on Reno Tahoe and many quotes from our VP of Sales, Mike. Did a good job. Last of all, we're gearing up for Reno Pride Week and the Reno Pride on Saturday. We have joined forces again with Big Truck Hats, and they're going to have a booth down there. And this is part of our whole strategy for getting into that niche market, especially in Northern California, but nationwide. We have to be real here at home and seen. So we've created, with Big Truck Hats, Reno Pride hats, and we're really looking forward to having a presence down on the river this weekend. So that's what I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Larghetto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick update scorecard as it relates to convention sales. The team continues to perform as we closed out the fiscal year for 17-18. For the month of May, convention room nights totaled 33,333. Yes, 33333. Against a goal of 28,907. Of those 33,000 room nights, the majority were represented by the sports segment at 27,476. And the remaining 5,867 came from the convention side. For the month of May, we produced 20 definite group bookings. We continue to see a representation from a variety of segments: agriculture, finance, government, hobby, sports, trade, and commercial. For the month of June, this past June, we totaled 17,061 room nights against a goal of 36,976. The primary reason for the variance there is we had budgeted to turn volleyball definite in June of this last fiscal year, and it actually went definite in May, so that's why you see a significant variance there. For the fiscal year of 17-18, the definite room night total finished at 314,226 against a goal of 260,000. I'd like to point out that the convention sales team's success of achieving the annual room night goal was a result of several individuals' production and not solely based on the booking of one major citywide contract. Of the 12 regional directors who all have annual room night goals based in their respective territories and their vertical markets, 9 met and exceeded their individual goals, and 2 of those 12 have been employed less than 6 months. That being said, the team knows we are only as good as our last booking, and we are motivated to continue our success as we go forward in this next fiscal year.
Fantastic.
Mr. Jimenez.
Tough act to follow, Mr. Larghetto. For May, the tourism sector continues to perform very well. May's reported room night production of 63,988 room nights exceeded last May by 14,007 room nights. We're at 122% to the monthly goal of 52,457 room nights. And year-to-date, we are at 701,035 room nights, which is an increase of 112,123 room nights compared to last fiscal, which gets us to 103% of our goal of 679,599 room nights. On the PhD China front, we've been busy. We'll be conducting joint sales calls with the China team in Southern California and the Bay Area next month with receptive tour operators. We're bringing in, end of August, two very important FAMs. One is a travel trade FAM with tour operators, and one is a media FAM. And the media will include Lonely Planet, Beijing Youth Weekly, Comfort, Travel and Leisure, and World Traveler. We also were represented in Guangzhou at a Brand USA convention trade show by the PhD team in China. And finally, we looked at a sneak peek of our website 2 days ago, which will launch in the next 10 days. We'll launch the website, WeChat, and our Weibo social media platforms. So we're on track.
Marvelous. Mr. Chisel.
The only thing I have to report is that the Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for our comprehensive annual financial report. Those of you in Sparks and Reno and Washoe County are familiar with that, and we received one once again. So, and they're not as fancy as, you know, the marketing ones or paper, but, you know, they're accountants, so it's a more efficient.
We'll put that in the display case out front.
Yeah, on the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
No, on top shelf.
Okay.
Top.
Did they email it to you? You had to print it out?
No, they actually mailed it, but I think they're going to stop that because it's costing a lot to mail.
Yeah.
That pretty paper you used for the financial.
Yeah.
Hey, we like those fiscal approaches, man.
With that in mind, we did install a display case right inside our front entrance. So when you leave, take a look at it. We're very proud of all of the awards that we've been getting.
Great. Any questions from the board in regards to the scorecard? Mr. Sturbins.
Question for Mike. Thank you for your presentation. But it looks like here, compared to year over year and for the month, the sports category is tremendously surpassing its goal, but the convention category is trailing year over year and significantly behind goal. Do you expect that trend to continue?
Right. The reason for why you're seeing such a large increase in the sports category over prior year is that we actually categorize Interbike under sports versus convention. So that booking alone represents 60,000 room nights. We take credit for the 3 years, and then the next 2 are rolling, and you take credit for the 4th year once the 1st year consumes, and the 5th year once the next year consumes. As it relates to convention, it's definitely a focus for the team to get that number up, specifically not only association, but focusing on the corporate market. But yeah, that's definitely a necessity that we need to push this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Mayor Sheevey.
Yeah, Jennifer, I think you've done a tremendous job with Pride. I will be marching in the parade. I think it starts at 10 o'clock. I don't know, have any of you been following sort of the marketing initiative Las Vegas has been doing for the LGBTQ community? It's impressive. It's getting a lot of recognition all across the country. And I think to your point saying, you know, that sometimes we got to remember we kind of forget at home we're living in this bubble, but once we see those ads, then we kind of tell family and friends, remember, visit Reno Tahoe. It kind of, you know, gets our minds going as well. So I think that's really important. And if anyone wants to walk in the parade, will you be coming, Mr. Chairman?
I will.
Okay, good. And how about you, Mr. Lawson?
I will be at Night in the Country with 50,000
Oh,
rednecks.
there you go. All right, next year. But I think it really is important, and especially the San Francisco market, obviously, is such a big market for Reno. And I've had a lot of people from San Francisco tell me we haven't been to Reno in years, and now they're coming here and really excited. And obviously, the Gay Bowling Congress coming is really exciting. They're super excited. And Reno, actually, one of our parades have gotten so much bigger even than Las Vegas, so which is kind of impressive. And I want to just say thank you, Jennifer, for being so kind, and Big Trucks, they're awesome. So.
Awesome. Any further questions or comments?
Oh, and if any of you guys want to come with me, 9 o'clock Java Jungle, and you get a rainbow sash.
Do we have to come in drag? Is that part of it?
Yes.
All right. No, it's just a question. Just a question.
You're going to have to buy some new
Or
clothes.
invite your employees, whoever you guys want, come with us.
All right. Well, thank you very much. very, very inspiring news. Hopefully that we can continue these momentums that we've been seeing over the last few months, and look forward to those type of results in the 18-19 year. All right, we are on to item E3, election of the RSCVA board chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. This is something that we, by pursuant to NRS, comes every even year that we must do this. So with that, I will turn this over to our attorney, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So correct, pursuant to NRS 244A-605, in July of every even number year, the RSCVA elects its executive positions. The four positions that need to be filled are the board chair, the board vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. Typically, we combine secretary and treasurer, and we'll just go in order and do one at a time. The process for each position, the chair will open the board for nominations. Nominations can be made by the entire board. Nominations don't need a second. Once the nominations excuse me, are complete, the chair will close the board for nominations. There can be a discussion and then a vote. If there's only one nominee, we'll do a voice vote. If there are more than one nominee, then we'll do a roll call vote where everybody will announce their vote. A couple things on the board chair. The board chair can only be one of the 3 elected officials per statute. The vice chair can be any board member, and secretary and treasurer can be any board member. And then each position is voted on by the entire board. So if there are any questions, if not, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much. So we'll take this in order. First off, we'll open up right now I'll open up the nominations for board chair for RSCVA. So Mayor Sheevy?
Oh, I still had it on, okay.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay.
So at this time, I would like to nominate Bob Lucy on the premise that we start to emulate the airport board and sort of their structure and rotating so that every jurisdiction can kind of rotate and get to support the region. I had a long talk with Bob Lucy about sort of where we're going. One of the reasons I feel comfortable with nominating you again is I know that you've had a strong hand at the legislature. I think it's going to be really important as we move forward. And I know you're down there a lot and you're committed. I also spoke to you about some of my concerns. You addressed them, but we also, talked about successes. And I think Ed would do a fantastic job. I mean, I'm not saying one or, the other. I just think going into session that I would support Bob Lucy again on the premise that we do start to rotate. And then the other thing that I would like to see, because we kind of did it, and then it seems like we've sort of lost that structure, and I spoke to you in great lengths about it, exactly how airport does it with subcommittees. I think some of us have a lot of different strengths, whether it's finance, I'm looking at you, finance, and our marketing, and kind of getting back into those subcommittees, because I think right now we are at a critical time to really get moving to make sure that we can achieve all those successes. I'm really proud of the work you guys have done. Just so you know, it's impressive. So, and I get to hear it like it's funny because I'll be in like Washington or other places and they'll say they met you, and so you guys are like really out there, and so I want to thank you. But we spoke in great lengths of my concerns and also some of the things you've achieved. But again, I think it would be wise to start rotating.
Great, thank you. All right, any further nominations? Mr. Caroselli.
I'd like to nominate Ed Lawson for the chairmanship coming up, and I think Ed would do a great job. And Bob, you've done a tremendous job in the time you've been here, but I think I like the rotation system to start now. I think it's time to start it, as I said. I think Ed would do a great job. You've done a tremendous job also, but I think it's Sparks' turn. They have not had a chair here since 2002, so I think Sparks, like I said, needs to be coming to the top now and getting a chairmanship position.
Great. All right. Any further nominations at this time? All right. Seeing no further nominations, we'll close the nominations. We have nominations for myself and for Mr. Lawson to serve as chair. Since we have 2 nominations on the floor currently at this time, what we'll do is conduct a roll call vote. Ms. Clerk, if I will have you go on and take down the votes, please.
Mr. Caroselli? Mr. Dillard?
Mr. Lucy?
Mr. Lawson?
I'll vote for myself.
Mr. Lucy?
I might be the only two votes I get.
I'm going to vote for myself.
Mr. Murdoch? Mayor Sheeby?
Bob Lucy.
Mr. Sturbins? Mr. Wood? Mr. Wowo?
Mr. Lucy.
All right. So thank you very much. I think we have 6-3. We have a 6-3 vote, 3 for Mr. Lawson, 6 for myself. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I appreciate your willingness to participate in this process. I promise to continue to serve as chair. I thank you for, it's been an honor to serve as chair of this board. It is by far and away the most important board that I serve on. I think we've come a long ways, not only as a board, but also as an organization with our executive team and all of our staff here. We've really turned a corner here within tourism, and I'd like to see that come through fruition. And I believe, and I will gladly move into that rotation schedule, Mayor Sheeby, and I'd like to see that continued representation throughout this region for a number of years to come. So, Mr. Caroselli.
You're going to be the new chairman again. I
Yeah.
think all board members ought to get behind you, not 100%, but 1,000%. Let's continue the march.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right. Next we have. What's that?
I'm going to be tough on you.
You're going to be tough on me. Is that any different? You've been nice on me? Oh God, it's going to be worse. Okay. All right. With that, we're going to move on to the chair. So I'm vice chair. So what I'll do is I'll open the nominations for vice chair at this time. So Mr. Lawson has served as our vice chair. I'd like to see Miss Sheeby, Mayor Sheeby, if she would accept the nomination. I would like to nominate Mayor Sheeby as our vice chair to serve as our board, on our board.
Right.
She's been tremendous advocate for the area.
All right.
Come on,
No.
you did it for me. Why can't I? What?
No. So actually, I would ask that you, I think.
Would you like to
I would
decline?
like to see Ed Lawson remain vice chair.
Okay.
And
So you'd like
because
to add-
I think Ed has done a fine job whenever you're not here, and I just, either way, I'll be participating in this board. It doesn't matter, where I serve, because I'm here anyway, so.
And this
I'll
is open,
continue to do so. So I would like to see Ed Lawson do that. But
Okay.
thank you, Chairman Lucy, I appreciate it.
All right, so we have nominations, and so these are just nominations. I do nominate Mayor Sheeby. She's nominated, obviously, Mr. Lawson. Are there any other nominations for any other board members? Mr. Sturbins? Sure.
So, congratulations. But as we go forward, if we go into the rotation, isn't it more common for the upcoming chair to be the vice chair going into that process?
It can be. I mean, it's the way our charter is written is that it can be anyway. So I mean, but it's a process that we can adopt within our way of how we do things. If that's what this board would like and prefer, that the vice chair become the incoming chair, we could adopt those types of changes if that's something that this board would like to do as well.
I mean, I think it makes sense if we're going to go to a rotation where we have we know who the incoming chair will be at a certain period of time, that person gets the experience as the vice chair would make logical sense, in my opinion.
I think that's a well-warranted comment.
I think, honestly, yes and no. I've sat on both. I personally, I think it depends on, how committed they are. Are they coming? And also, a lot of times some even decline, don't really want to do it. So I just, that's just been my experience. So.
I was gonna echo those exact thoughts and caution on that, just knowing that on other boards that I've sat on, and this wouldn't be represented because I know Ed's gonna do a great job if either one of you would do a great job if you were elected a vice chair. But where there have been instances where the vice chair did not fulfill the needs to be warranted to be grandfathered in or adopted in as the incoming chair. I've seen where they were voted out for not fulfilling their duties. So just err aside of caution that if we were to adopt a system of that type, that we should also be able to then and still vote on if someone else were to be nominated for that seat.
And I'm even open to the idea, but I don't know, because I think it could be a legislative
I think
thing.
it's
I'd like to see other, even board members serve as chair or vice chair, you know. I don't know how that works, but I think that would also be something that we should do, contemplate.
Mr. Kennedy.
Sure, so I'll shed a little bit of light. So we're governed by statute. The statute's clear that every 2 years, the entire board has to vote for the chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. So while the board can sort of agree that going forward with this concept that we want to implement it, every 2 years a vote's taken and nothing that's decided today or policy that's put in place can be binding. Every 2 years it's a fresh vote. And so if the board wants to structure it so that the vice chair makes sense to transition into the board chair, 2 years from now, that's got to be voted upon anew, and the board can decide at that time whether it wants to do that or whether it doesn't.
What about others other than elected serving?
So SB 480 that was passed this last session that reorganized the board, there's a provision in there that expressly says board chair has to be one of the 3 elected officials, but vice chair, that's a legislative change.
So Mayor Sheevy, I have a quick question for you. Since you feel that you would not want to be considered for nomination for the vice chair, can I redact that? Can I remove my nomination if that's the case?
Correct. Once a nomination is made, if the nominee doesn't desire to serve, then you can pull that back.
Okay. So I will pull my nomination for Mayor Sheevy at this time. Are there any further nominations? Seeing no further Mr. Caroselli.
In other words, we don't have a nominee, and if you're withdrawing Mayor Sheevy.
No, Mayor Sheevy, she nominated Mr. Lawson.
Oh, you nominated Mr. Lawson, I get it, okay. I'm with that.
Okay. So.
Come on, you guys, it's politics. I'm just calling it out. I'm always the girl that says, here's the elephant in the room.
All right, so we have,
You know me, you know I do this.
so if there's no further nominations at this time, we'll close nominations. We only have one nominee, which would be Mr. Lawson, to continue to serve as vice chair of the Reno Sparks.
I won my election. Nobody ran against me.
All right. Seeing that there's only one nominee at this time, we'll take a vote. All those in favor for supporting Mr. Lawson as vice chair, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to Secretary and Treasurer of the Board. As Mr. Kennedy has outlined previously, these two positions may be combined and have been combined. Mr. Caroselli has served as our Secretary and Treasurer for the Board. We need to take 2 motions, and a motion to combine both roles, and then we would make when we could take the nominations for that individual. So at this time, is there a motion to combine Secretary and Treasurer into one serving role? Mr. Caroselli.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Caroselli. I have a second from Mr. Wood. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right. So at this time, I'll open nominations for the position of Secretary and Treasurer. Going once, twice. Open nominations for Secretary Treasurer. Anybody? Mr. Caroselli?
You want to do it again?
You want to do it again?
Because it's super stressful.
It's a tough job.
I respectfully pass to be secretary, or be nominated for secretary treasurer.
All right. Any other? I lead Dillard. I like that.
Second.
Third.
We have a nomination for Mr. Dillard. Are there any further nominations? Seeing no further nominations, we'll close nominations. Mr. Dillard, you have been nominated as the Secretary Treasurer of the RSCVA. At this time, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Dillard. You get to count all the dollars now. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. We will move on to now, yes, Mr. Murdoch.
Sorry. We did have committees and we did have a rotation. I think the committee chairs were, helped the chairs and the vice chairs, get the right consensus and work together. So the model that the airport uses is very good, and I think we're very close to that. And we don't have to be the airport because we're not the airport, but again, I commend everybody here for doing that, and I appreciate everybody's service because it's not easy doing these boards, and I did it for 8 years, and Nat does 2 boards. I mean, you've got, it takes a lot of time. So thank you all for that, and again, I love the airport model, so hopefully we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. And I agree. I think, we moved away, while we're on the topic, we moved away from doing the subcommittees as a board, kind of during the restructuring and whatnot. I think we're back to a place where I think it would be, we have such an active board and such a committed board to the ultimate goal of this organization. I would really like to see more subcommittees and participate, especially when we come to some of our financial discussions, our marketing discussions, and operations. It tremendously helps to do that. I know Mayor Sheeby and I, when we participated in the marketing subcommittee, that was very helpful on identifying what our new brand was. I know the operations that Mr. Lawson and many others have all served on has been very helpful in regards to how we move forward with our management. So I'd like to see those come back to fruition and get more of those on calendar, Mr. DeLone. We're finding some times and benefit that those committees can really work with the executive team to make sure that those policies are getting back to the board prior to in a shapely manner. So, all right.
Pointed.
Yes, Mr. Lawson.
Mr. Kennedy, can the subcommittee chair call a meeting, or does it have to go through the chairman?
Historically, once committees have been established, and we currently have the shells, we have committees established. Once they are staffed, then it's up to the committee to meet as the committee feels necessary to address, and they bring recommendations back to the board.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion on this item at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. All right. We are on to E4, amendment of the RSCVA board policies for board member travel. Mr. DeLone.
In your board binders, a written policy on travel. In essence, the spirit of the policy is that board volunteers, when traveling on official RSCVA business, will follow the documented travel policy that's already in place for staff.
Any discussion on this? None? Seeing none? Looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Oh, there is a question. Yes,
Sorry,
Mayor.
Mayor Sheeby.
How, you've updated it, you've changed it, how's it changed?
It hasn't
We've never had one?
No, we've had one. This documents that the board will also follow our standard policy. So,
The same, okay.
The board
Yeah.
has never had a policy for travel. We pulled this from Las Vegas.
Okay. Well, that might not be good.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying.
Adhere to it.
I'm just saying.
you're going to have to stop using those
I'm
gift
just kidding.
cards. I'm sorry, but
Did I say that in my out loud?
it's okay.
All right. Mr. Caraselli. Looking for a motion.
I just did.
Motion from Mr. Caraselli, second from Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Sure. Also, Chairman Lucy, if I may.
Sure.
You have a board onboarding book that outlines some of our basic policies and procedures and so on. Has a lovely welcome letter from the CEO. So I would encourage you to browse through there. You'll find quite a bit of useful information. And
the board member Bibles, I like it.
A board member Bible, that's a good word for it. Yes,
You know,
sir.
and I don't sell your letters short, Phil. I read them every month and I enjoy them.
Good, thank you. You're the only one.
I keep them right next to my My nightstand at night lulls me to sleep. All right.
If I can interject too, please do look at this board member policy. And in the back is a really interesting read on the history of the RSCVA, which has been compiled from prior people, prior employees, and it ended in about 1995. And so our staff picked it up from there. And you will find it fascinating how history repeats itself. So it's a really interesting read. And in
Elmo Ellsworth.
in anticipation of approving the policy, I printed up binder-ready policies for you guys just to pop in the part of your binder that talks about policies. Thank you.
All right. All right, so we are now on to financial, we'll open the public hearing. We have, we're on to F1, the public hearing for the transient lodge tax rules and regulations. So, Mr. Chisel.
Robert Chisel, Director of Finance, for the record. Before you is the second hearing of the changes to the transient lodging tax regulations. There is a couple of items in there that, one, they fall primarily under housekeeping. The second item was just the reporting on the comp rooms and how the cash rooms and comp rooms are handled. This was a request by a number of the properties and primarily only affects those that have additional charges on comp rooms. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions at the time on the changes, the amended changes? All right, seeing no, this is a public hearing. I do not have any public signed in at this time for this, but is there any public members that would like to speak on this amendment to the tax? Seeing none, we will close the public comment on this and bring it back to the board at this time. Looking for a motion to adopt the amendment. So move, motion from Mr. Murdoch. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Wowo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right. So with, we're on to items F2. I'd like to take F2 and if it's the pleasure of the board, take F2 and F3 together simultaneously. They are both for RFPs and contracts to be awarded for the convention center for improvements.
Can we do that legally?
Can we take them? Yeah, we can take them. We can take them together, if you'd like. Mr. Chisel, if you have anything to outline or highlight on those RFPs.
Nope, they were done in accordance with the Nevada revised statutes,
Okay.
and the lowest bidder was selected.
So what we'll do is we'll take items F2 and F3 as a combined. We'll open both of those items right now for those improvements of those RFPs. Looking for a motion or any questions? I have a motion from Mr. Dillard, second from Mr. Sturbins. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to the F4, amended restated management contract with SMG.
Before you today is an amendment to the management agreement with SMG for the management of our facilities. A couple of items are in the change. One is the making the date of June 17th the official start date, which was approved by the board at the approval of the agreement. We moved it from July 1st to June 17th. The second item was a change that had to take place on how the incentive for the financial incentive took place. This was to meet the latest IRS revenue procedure 2017-13 that detailed how profits can be shared with non-taxable bond issuance. We have a non-taxable bond issuance on several of the facilities, and so we need to make sure we comply with the IRS revenue procedures. This will put us in compliance with those procedures. In your packet in the staff report, we prepared a scenario of the change in the amended incentive that basically shows what the scenarios were that were presented with the original management agreement, scenarios 1, 2, and 3. And then we mirrored them with the First Amendment. As you can see, the financial change was fairly small out of, revenues of about $3.5 million, $6 million to $7 million. It would result in about $23,000 difference, or a net effect to the authority of about $300 in one scenario. And with the other scenario, it was a $48,000 impact with a $2,800 impact to the authority. So it was fairly de minimis change. We don't know what the scenarios will be and what actually comes out with the profit and loss with the facilities, but we don't think the amendment had a significant financial impact to the authority. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board in regards to the amended changes for the SMG contract? Saying that, Mr. Caroselli.
I'm going to make a motion.
Please.
Move to approve item F4.
I have a motion. I have a second by Mr. Murdoch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Moving right along. Item F5, review fiscal year 2017-2018 room tax department, the room tax department performance. Mr. Chisel.
Again, this is just a review of our room tax department. We have two individuals in there, Karen Barnes and Robert Douglas, who are with us today, who I got to say do an outstanding job. And when you look at the number of audits that they perform in a year compared to when we had even more staff, it's very impressive. Also, I'd like to point out they have a very good working relationship with all the properties. This is more of a collaborative effort, and so the properties, I think, feel very comfortable coming to talk to Robert and Karen and discuss the issues with them so that they can all be in compliance. But in your packet just kind of reviews the audits that were performed for fiscal year 2018. There were 40 audits performed, and the results of those audits, every 3 years the properties are done, and the hotels are done, and every 5 years the other properties are conducted. Would be happy to answer any questions on the statistics or go through them in greater detail.
I have a question in regards to one of the audits, in regards to the audit summaries. On Exhibit B, on the second page in the fiscal 2017-2018 room tax audit summaries, in fiscal year 15-16, vacation rentals showed a total revenue, taxable revenue in the market segment of $174,000 and change. That dramatically decreased in fiscal year 16-17 to 2,420. Can somebody enlighten me on that?
Yes.
Why such a massive decrease from 174,000 to 2,420? Or is it that taxable revenue? Why did that change? Then shows a zero number in fiscal year 17-18.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was a fade of the memory. We didn't do any audits for last year for any vacation rentals. That's showing how many taxable revenues were audited in 15-16.
So it's just what was audited?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what we're also seeing, when you look at vacation rentals, you're seeing a lot more going to Airbnb, and we have a lot more increase in the Airbnb markets.
And is Airbnb being audited, or how do we track that?
We have a favorable agreement with Airbnb where they provide the taxable revenue to us, which is fairly unique, and so they are on the list to be audited, but they haven't been audited at this time.
Okay. All right. See any other discussions? Looking for a motion at this time? No, it's not an action item. Sorry, I apologize. Thank you. So this is information. Thank you very much. All right. We are now on to item G1, June Influencer Program Presentation. Ms. Ernie.
All right. In the past, you've heard me talk about influencers and how we've been using them to market our destination. Some of you are very active on social media, some of you not as much. So we wanted to take a minute and show you our latest promotion that we conducted in June. And in terms of effective marketing and advertising, I think this takes first place over anything else we do, because it's really portraying our destination from the people who are experiencing it. And I'll turn it over to Christina now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Christina Ernie, your Senior Manager of Digital Marketing and Engagement, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit about our Summer Influencer Program that we did last month. As Jennifer mentioned, and you guys have probably heard me talk about influencer marketing before, and that we host influencers throughout the year, but I just want to talk a little bit about how this one was a little more different, and how this activation was a little different, and how it was successful. So we invited 6 major influencers to our destination, and at one time. So they didn't know each other beforehand. We invited them all, and we separated them into contrasting pairs. So they were partnered with someone that would challenge them to maybe experience a part of the destination that they might not have experienced on their own. With all influencer projects, some of the key objectives that we go after are, of course, reaching our millennial audience, our Gen X audience, showing everyone the Reno Sparks Tahoe area. But what we did with this one, and what we do with a lot of our influencer programs that are different from other organizations, is we secure the rights to all of the images that they capture. So we have full rights to use them in our advertising. We have full rights to use their personalities in our advertising, and creating those brand ambassadors, excuse me, talking with my hands, that are celebrities in the eyes of Gen Xers and millennials. They know them on Instagram. They know who they are, and when we put them in our advertising, they make that connection, and they know those faces. So we got tons of video, tons of photos. They'll be in our advertising. We're doing a big buy with Matador Network, one of the leading online travel brands, and all of this influencer content will be the sole campaign of that online program. So today I'm just going to talk to you. We are going to do, as I mentioned, the advertising and the Matador Network program. But today, this deck is just about what we secured during the one weekend that those 6 people were in our destination. So this is just from that one weekend, those 6 people, what they posted. Just from that time, they had 12 million impressions. They had 261 likes and comments in one weekend on their posts, and they posted 369 times. That's just an overview of the numbers to get them out on the table, and now I'll kind of go through how we got there. So who are these people? They are professional content curators. They are professional travel photographers, travel writers who have gained an audience of hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of followers because they're so successful in telling brand destination stories. As I mentioned, we paired them up into contrasting pairs. What we did was we identified we kind of put an identity to each of the influencers to kind of have us better strategically pair them up. So we paired a culturist that we dubbed with a risk taker. The culturist that we had that we brought to our destination was Christine. Her handle's Tour de Lust. So we really brought her in. She is a little bit more luxury. She appreciates the arts and dining. So we had her kind of focus on a lot of the arts around our town. On these slides going through each of the influencers we brought in, I have listed their total individual audience. Her herself has 244,000+ followers. And those are the impressed social media numbers that she alone brought in this one weekend. She was partnered with Joelle Friend, the risk taker. She's not afraid to do things. She got up at sunrise and jumped in the lake. And she brought the culturist with her, someone who probably would never get up for sunrise and jump in the lake, but they exposed each other to these different elements that they may not have done on their own, and their followings to these different aspects, contrasting aspects of our destination. And here's some of the images that they secured during the weekend and posted, and again, we have full rights to all of these. Our next pair, we had a wild card and a foodie. Our wild card, Amy, you can find her, you can find her in heels at a polished dinner or in her hiking boots up in the woods. She scaled the rock climbing wall, went to Chimney Beach Food Truck Fridays. She was paired with Cheat Day Eats. When we go on vacation, you know, that's kind of when the diets go downhill. And she goes to destinations and picks out those food items that are the ooeyest, gooeyest food items of those destinations. We got carbonara from Liberty Food and Wine. And of course, she went along with her partner to a lot of outdoor activities. And here's some of their photos. Great Basin nachos and Sparks, looking good. Our next group was an entrepreneur and an adventurist. We dubbed Renee the entrepreneur because she has a go-getter spirit. She is a U.S. transplant from Australia, and she had heard about Lake Tahoe and had never been to it, and she was really excited to come there. But what she really fell in love with was Reno, the river rafting in Reno, the bike riding along the river walk, picnic patio. She's a vegetarian. She got some salmon, grilled it up, and had a blast doing it and sharing it. She was partnered with Sam Graves, who is a phenomenal landscape photographer, and he captured some of those iconic landscapes, urbanscapes, cityscapes of our destination paired with Renee, and they challenged each other. They went and did the Flume Trail and had a blast going through some of those challenges, the wind up there, but had the best time. Some of their photos. So kind of just going quickly off of highlights of what we did when we brought them here. To kick it off, we brought the 6 influencers. They had never met each other, so we brought them to Hub Coffee Shop to meet their partners, to go over their itineraries, and to capture their initial impressions of the destination. This was all captured on film by Matador Network's filming crew, and we asked them, what are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to? And we got all that captured. Then we sent them off on their adventures around the entire destination, Reno, Sparks, Tahoe, Virginia City, Flume Trail, many others, into the 3 groups of 2 in their individual itineraries, really covering as much ground as possible in one weekend to showcase how much you can do in one week, any given weekend in Reno, Tahoe. They had genuinely had a fantastic time here in our destination, and the photos, again, are incredible. To wrap it up, after 2 days of exploring our destination, capturing images and content that we were super proud of, we got them all together, got them on the brew bike, and we actually went around and took a look at some of the Burning Man art around Reno. We got someone from Burning Man to join them on this tour, really speak to the culture and the influence that it's had on our community. And then we ended the weekend with a casual get-together at the Eddy, where we got pizzas and just chatted and, again, filmed. So now that you've been here and gone on your adventures, what did you most enjoy? What did you look forward to? Any surprises? And one of the things that I thought was really fascinating from that initial, what are you looking forward to? None of these people had been to our destination before. And we got them from, their hometowns are in our target markets, Seattle, LA, and San Francisco, but their followings are around the country and globally. They had never been here before. They hadn't even been to Lake Tahoe before. And so they initially coming to the destination, that was what they were kind of focused on, just looking at destination perception. Like, well, we're really excited to see Lake Tahoe and just that lake, yada, yada. At the end, when they were talking about their time here, and a lot of them had extended their trip a day, so they had a day of free time. And they're like, well, what are you guys gonna do tomorrow? Every single one of them fell in love with Reno, and they were gonna spend that extra day in Reno. So even though Tahoe, maybe that was their initial perception, Reno was truly the city that captured their heart and the city that they wanted to stay in once they were here. So that was, and Sparks, yes, I'm sorry, the region of Reno Sparks. So that was really fun to see. So they had a blast, but really did their followers, what did they think? So these are just some snippets of the 250,000 comments and likes that were posted over the weekend. Everyone had a blast. Their photos were highly engaging. I mean, that breakfast sandwich and that yolk drip was so cool. We also, the RSCVA team, was out there the entire weekend. Our social team, Soraya and Andy, were out there capturing photos and following along the influencers. This is all stuff that they captured, and we're posting on our platforms the entire time as well, and got over 8,000 engagements on our posts. So going back to those numbers, you know, the 12 million impressions, the 250,000 engagements, all really impressive numbers for one weekend. But one of the things that I really like about this slide are some of those smaller numbers. So of course, when we have influencers come to our destination, we contract, you guys have to post X number of times, and you have to give us X number of photos that we're gonna get rights to. But our hope is that they that they want to post because they genuinely love our destination. Our hope is that we contract 133 posts, but they post 369 times, and we didn't pay them an additional dime for those 200 extra posts. They genuinely wanted to post about our destination. Their following was engaged in it because they wouldn't post about it if everyone gave them negative feedback. Their followers were engaged with 1.4 million, so they continued to post. Again, with images. Our hope, we had them contracted to share 150 images, but we got 247 images that we have full rights to use for whatever we want because they couldn't keep their cameras in their camera bags. So that was really neat to see that these people really did love being here and over-delivered by far. So as I mentioned, all of those stats were just from the weekend, but there is ongoing impact. Matador, that buy is going to be launching next month. We'll have all these itineraries in our advertising, all these additional Instagram posts we're getting. But what's really neat is inviting 6 influencers that are this big to our destination really does get noticed by the influencer community and beyond. The number of emails that I've gotten from other influencers asking to come here has been crazy. And not just influencers, but brands. From national dog food brands, Blue Buffalo, if you know them, they reached out, they noticed our destinations as dog friendly, to paddleboard companies, to bathing suit brands, to catamaran brands, locally and nationally, reaching out, trying to get a slice of this pie. Renee, one of her friends reached out to me when she saw her coming to their destination. They have 1.4 million followers, and they were going from Yosemite to the coast of California, and they reached out and like, hey, we would love to delay our trip in California and come to Reno Tahoe and experience the destination, and doing it for fractions of the cost because they really want to come here and they're seeing how well content of our destination is performing. And most recently, one of the cooler things that happened was just this week, I don't know if you guys have heard of the book Girl Boss or the hashtag Girl Boss, Nasty Gal, the giant lifestyle brand. Sophia Amoruso personally emailed me and said that she wanted to do an influencer campaign with Reno Tahoe. I mean, that was really cool to see. And I mean, that was a huge movement. So people are noticing our influencer campaigns and getting out there within the industry. So just a quick graph that kind of shows the impact that influencers have on our social media channels directly. This is the number of people who follow our Instagram page daily. This was for the month of May. And so these are people signing up to get content from us daily. We post on there every single day about events, hotels, pretty images, everything that this destination has to offer. So this is our average number of people that like us on Instagram. And then those last 2 days are when the influencers come into town. And these influencers aren't even saying, go follow Reno. They're just tagging us in their posts. And there's such that loyalty between their followers and those influencers that they trust them to only be showing them kind of the best of. And so they'll just hit that follow button and receive content from us just because they were here. So I think it's pretty cool to see that impact directly. So here they are. The smiles are genuine. They really had a blast. We created lifelong ambassadors. Before they left, all asked, can't wait to come back. We would love to come back this winter and see the difference between Reno and summer and that difference. And yeah, that's it. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. Any questions from the board? Mayor Sheeby?
I've got to leave, so I apologize to everyone, but really quickly, fantastic job. I can't even begin to tell you, because I know this is so much work. Not only, I mean, you make it look effortless and easy, but this is really the future. Traditional marketing is like so dead with this demographic. It's not even funny. So I just want to say, I was seeing a lot of that posting, and it was tremendous.
Well, thank you.
I think the only platform of choice though was Instagram, because I looked them all up on Twitter. So, and I know they're all a little different, but I just I was just curious.
This one did focus on Instagram. We really wanted to focus on imagery and getting those assets. So Instagram was the primary focus, but they did do a few tweets and posts on their Facebook pages, and they all wrote a blog about the destination as well.
Yeah. So I just want to say, like, you guys are spot on. Jennifer, this is like you know, day one, this is what you were all about. This is really, because see, it's genuine, it's authentic. People are not, well, this generation is not paying attention anymore unless it's very authentic. That I just saw this, you know, marketing program where they showed one very high dollar, you know, made up video. It was beautiful, it was incredible. And then they showed something shot from an iPhone, and that had 10 times the reach from the iPhone. So that's what people, this demographic is really looking for, authenticity. So, and it's hard to do. It's very, very hard to do, and we're doing it very well. And a lot of that has to do, like I said, whenever I'm all over the place, and you know, I'm big on social, so it's, you know, it's very, very effective. I will tell you, even in my own business, we have to post at least 6 times a day, and I notice the numbers drop significantly. I would say between 10 and 20% daily based on how we post. So it's huge, yeah, and especially the images. But anyway, great job. Like, you guys are just killing it. All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you. You know, Christina, I have to say the same thing. You know, a social influencer that I follow, her name is Jess Wandering. She has about 600,000. I reached out to her. She does work with Iceland. She's done stuff with British Columbia, a number of major markets throughout the world. And I said, hey, will you be interested in maybe participating with Reno Tahoe and come taking a look? She came and visited. She has close to 600,000 followers on multiple of her media assets that she utilizes. She came, spent time with Christina, did a tour of the lake, Virginia City, Reno Tahoe, Sparks area, went throughout, and wrote a blog post. And if you go back and read some of her blog posts, you know, something that she incited in her social media influence was for people. She brought back memories, you know, the memories of traveling to Tahoe as kids and smelling the pine forest and waking up to the cold lake, or going downtown and being able to go and be at the river and have dinner with their families, and so many things that was reincited for people out through her social media. And these people are reimagining dreams from people that they've already experienced, but they're just bringing them back to the service. And it's tremendous. And I got to tell you, some of the real work that you've done, Christina. Christina is personal friends with an individual who the RSCVA is a big part of the Downtown Business Improvement District for the city of Reno. One of her very close friends, who she independently helped bring him to this market, has now become our executive director of the BID, and it's through her work and her support of our community. He chose to leave West Hollywood in California and bring his expertise forward to our community. And our downtown area and many of our communities will be very thankful, because the work this woman right here in front of us did for us. She did market our region. She did, and so we're bringing not only individuals such as social influencers to market our region, but we're bringing professionals here that are really going to take a look at who we are and what we're going to do and really transform our community for many years to come. So thank you, Christina. We really appreciate the work that you've done. Mr. Wobo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to follow that up. I think you and Mayor Stevie already stole my thunder, but I just want to commend Jennifer and Christina and the rest of the marketing team. It's really incredible how overnight marketing in its entire practice has changed. The traditional marketing campaigns, the traditional commercials and billboards and magazine, you know, these things are still influential, but what we all do is we wake up in the morning, we go throughout the day, we're looking at social media throughout the day, right? Or texting our friends, and the way that we now see marketing has transformed. I would actually be really interested to see how we can start to elevate our traditional events like hot August nights and balloon races by bringing in influencers of those specific industries, right? Because I think we already have the base. I'm not sure if anybody else has noticed, but that base is slowly dying as far as who want to come to hot August nights, who wants to come to balloon races. If you've been once, you start to look for other opportunities that are similar. So for us to reignite these events locally, I think it'd be incredible for us to find that I think it was a couple years ago we brought the guy from Gas Monkey or something like that to hot August nights. You know, these people have influences around them that can reignite these events. So just want to commend you guys and the team. It's incredible work, and I'm really glad to see the nimble and agileness of making something like this happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Christina, I have one quick question for you, if there's any other comments. On your guys' debrief at the end of the tour for all the influencers, what were their, I mean, obviously they had a great trip and they highlighted the region. What were some of the, did they have any challenges that they saw that, you know, we could improve on, or things that we would do a better job professionally? Because obviously this is very organic type of marketing. How can we help influence them or influence our marketing? What was their feedback to you specifically about the region? Where could we have focused more on? What would they have liked to see more differently?
Yeah, I mean, they had honestly positive feedback about our community. They were just talking, they were really focusing on the arts, and maybe it was because we just got off of that Burning Man tour, but they were like, I had no idea how many incredible murals are around town, that influencers love murals. They go and pose in front of them and interact with them. The murals, Reno being the hub of outdoor adventure, they really focused on that, and they didn't realize how close it was to Lake Tahoe and how good of a home base Reno was to doing all those extra activities. What else did they talk about? The food scene, they loved our food here locally, the farm to table, fresh food.
But no specific constructive criticisms that they felt that could be been improved?
Honestly, no. They didn't. They loved it. They got bikes and biked around town. These guys are all from big cities who have all sorts of neighborhoods, and so I don't think that anything that we have in our town really affected them. They didn't have any negative feedback actually on our area.
Okay, great. And then one other thing, one other question I have, since we had the rights now to most of these pictures, did you guys shoot video, or can we create video and vignettes of some of these pictures for future brand campaigns and different things like that? Is that something that we're thinking about, Ms. Cunningham, and doing, or?
Absolutely. Yep. We had 2 video teams out there. We have a video team that's on retainer, and then Matador Network had their video team, and we divided and conquered. Everything was on film. All of their interviews, their natural reactions to activities. We went the video approach of kind of doing that authentic, natural, no staged. A lot of these influencers don't do a lot of personality video, so they're not fake and phony when they're on camera. They're authentic. And so, yes, we are working with Matador right now and creating a destination video highlighting the whole program. And then we're going to create social vignettes to put on our social media. And then also with our advertising, we are creating snippets of each of the itineraries to put as social ads and pre-roll on the different stations in the Bay Area, in LA, and Seattle. So yes, we do plan on using a lot of this video for our upcoming campaigns and integrating it with our branded assets that we've already been shooting.
Awesome. Any further questions, discussions? All right. This is awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all your work you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are on now to item G2, 2017, the Visitor Origination Analysis. It says organization, but it is truly origination. Slight typo. We'll get it right. So I will invite Miss Erica Olson and Howard Olson from On Strategy up. Howard, oh, no Howard today.
No Howard today.
Woohoo! No Howard today. Just kidding, Howard. Just kidding.
For the record, Erica Olson and Tim Robb with On Strategy on behalf of Dr. Olson, of course. And I am not smart enough to get this to work. Give me a minute. All right. We are the last agenda item, saving the best for last. Of course, we'll take about 10 minutes to walk through this information. What is awesome about compiling and having, quite frankly, the visitor origination analysis, which is a mouthful, in the same board meeting as the results from EMC and also from Christine's work, is the fact that the leading indicators from awareness, intent, and engagement is what that data shows us, of course, and the lagging indicators of the visitor origination analysis, or AKA, in 2017, where did the visitors come from to our destination? So that coupled together, that data being leading indicators, this being a lagging indicator, this is the 3rd year that we have produced this analysis to determine essentially where is the marketing where is our marketing effective and what's working. So I'll say that's kind of a loaded question and a loaded statement to know that the visitor origination analysis, unlike the data that we saw with EMC and also with Christine's information, is not just, of course, RSCVA impact, but rather regional impact, the work that the RSCVA is doing, coupled with the hotel properties, coupled with the airport authority, economic impact, all of those factors and others play into, of course, who's coming here. We don't have why they're coming here because this data is based on the registration records from the participating properties. So it specifically is data from the participating properties, analyzed 700,000 records or more, a lot. And all that information compiled together to let us know regionally where's the business coming from. Okay, so that's the backdrop of this information in this study. The full report is in your board packet. We're just going to touch on a couple of high points. Again, what I think is awesome about this work is it's simple, but also super powerful. And the simplicity really is around what's effective, what is working, and where are people coming from to our region. And now that we have 3 years of this study under our belt, we're starting to see trends of where is there lift and where isn't there lift. That said, we know, and all good marketers know, the lagging indicators of actual business results are not correlated specifically with marketing spend. That would be amazing if it was. But this does start to show us where some movement is and where some opportunity is, quite frankly, as well. So that's the purpose of this information. You can see that up there on the screen. The participating properties are listed here as well. Again, kind of stating this out just like we've done in the previous years. We have the overall market study, which we're looking at here today, and then the participating properties get a confidential benchmark report that illustrates how your property is performing against the other properties in the market and how you're performing by market for the top 25 MSAs or metropolitan statistical areas. So those reports will be emailed out today or tomorrow to again, the participating properties. And then as last year, Jennifer and Howard are available to do a briefing with your marketing teams to unpack the data further. So this information is merely about the market overall. I'll talk about the next point in a minute. Lastly, data, hotel databases specifically, as well as passenger information from the airport authority is what's included in this work. Okay, so again, as I mentioned before, unlike normal market research studies, this isn't a survey. This is the actual registration records from the properties. So we received about 60% of the total identifiable room nights from the market, and then based on that, because again, that's such a massive size, statistically, and Howard can talk to all that if you really want to get into the statistics, you take from there statistically and extrapolate that out to 100% of the market. So the data that we're looking at is reflective of 100% of the total occupied hotel room nights for 2017. Moving on. So as I mentioned, this is the 3rd year that we have been conducting this work. And again, just a big shout out to all the participating properties. This doesn't happen without your data. So the power of this work is the collective view of what's happening in our market. And that is because of all the properties that are participating. So thank you so much. You can see here some of the trends and what's moving and what's not moving. The markets that are reflected here are, again, the ones that are at the top of the list, but also where we're investing with RSCVA marketing dollars as well. There's a full list of the top 25 MSAs in your report, but just a couple call outs here. About 50% of the total visitation to the region is from the drive markets of Northern California. Maybe not too surprising, but interesting. Okay, sorry. And then, so that's kind of one call out. Another call out, just again, some movers, and there's some interesting anomalies. So you can see there's a lot of room nights that are booked from the local market, and you see a pretty significant decrease there. Because the data is based on hotel registrations, the coding across the properties is different, as you would expect. And so the deep dive into that is based on the fact that there were changes in direct billing, and that explains that decrease. There wasn't actually a decrease in the penetration, if you will. It's actually it's a booking accounting change.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I know you keep referring to this, so we have this report. None of the board members have this report. It's not been provided in our packet. So if we can get a copy of this after, so that the members could have a bit more detailed understanding. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Got it. Perfect. And again, hitting the high points, but we'll make sure that gets out to everybody. So, yep, there you go. So that's kind of the high asterisks on the Reno market. And then also the asterisks on the Seattle market. Again, a deep dive into that. There wasn't actually a decrease by 11% of visitation to Reno from Seattle. That was a change in the way the Expedia bookings are tracked. So again, there's just, this data isn't perfect. It's directional, but not perfect. So again, we don't expect to see that in the future, but that's the explanation for that. Let's see here. Sorry, just want to make sure I'm doing my call outs. Yep, perfect. All right, so Tim had the pleasure and joy to process all of this data. Thank you, Tim. So instead of looking at numbers, we've got some heat maps. He's going to walk through what the heat maps are telling us.
Yeah, so this first map is representative of all of the, if there was a room night consumed out of an MSA, it is shown here. So obviously the darker areas are higher levels of consumption of room nights. And it's worth noting that the top 5 MSAs represent 40% of the consumed room nights. And a lot of those coming from the western region, so we'll go into that map here. And in this map, the western region actually represents about 70% of the room nights consumed, so that's very significant. A lot of those may be drive markets, some of them fly. And also worth noting is some of the blank areas in this map, so most of Nevada, parts of California, Oregon, Washington, those are considered non-metropolitan areas, and they also have a significant number of room nights that have been consumed out of them as well. Let's see. So this third and final map represents the air service to the area, and it's overlaid on some of the top MSAs that have room nights consumed out of them. And the blue ones represent direct flights, and the orange are at least one stop. So.
And the numbers in the circles represent the passenger counts.
Yes.
So again, we're moving through this somewhat quickly, largely because it's probably helpful just to check out the report, but also just to do the quick call-outs. Certainly, as everybody knows, the overlay literally and for real with air service and visitor origination is tightly coupled. So that's why it's important, of course, to see this overlay. You'll note some more information in the report about some of the combination of visitation and air service, but just a couple quick call-outs. So certainly big opportunity from Seattle, as we all would expect. The load factors are quite high right now, so i.e. not a lot of capacity, so we know that. So that's, we're going to see that impact in the visitation increases or stabilization, right? Portland also showing quite a nice opportunity. Again, markets with big opportunity based on income and population size, and also sort of, similar value proposition, if you will. So at any rate, we know there's some more airlift coming from Portland, so that's a big help there as well. One thing that's worth noting, and it's a bit on the watch list, is Phoenix. So Phoenix has great air service, as we all know, and there's sufficient capacity there too, and has the population and the potential to be a nice opportunity. What's interesting to note, and we heard that from EMC as well, of course, is the focus in the markets that the RSCVA is investing in right now, which is LA, Seattle, and San Francisco. Keeping up that focus is really important, and a lot more opportunity from LA and San Diego. We're seeing that lift, and there's still more lift to be had, as you would expect, not only from a market perspective, but also from an airlift capacity perspective. So those are just some call outs. And Lastly, I touched on a couple of those, but not to be understated, the opportunity around the Northern California dry market is obviously still there. The market's not saturated, so that's the headline on that. And then you can, of course, see what I called out already on Los Angeles and Seattle. And then, of course, you know, roughly about 10% of the occupied room nights are coming from here, be that from, you know, business and what's happening economically, et cetera. We know what's happening with our respective properties, but that's obviously a big number as well. So, again, pretty straightforward and simple, but also super powerful in the context of actual business results related to where visitors are coming from and where those consumed room nights are actually coming from, which is great. So in recap then, just to note, we'll make sure that the full market report, that is essentially the overall market report, gets sent out to all the board members, and then individually, the confidential reports to the individual participating properties with your comparables and your benchmarks on how you're performing against your peers and against the overall market in the top 25 MSAs. So with that, any questions?
Mr. Dillard.
Thanks, sir. Without having seen the report, does the impact of the bowling years and the non-bowling years, is that taken into consideration in the analytics?
It's not because it's actual just property results, just straight up property results.
So I guess the point being is being a participating property, we'll have to go through some of that ourselves and try to. Okay.
And I think in fairness too, and I certainly welcome any other comments from other board members on this, but the property-specific reports are pretty powerful in the context of how this data then is interpreted specifically to your property and what you are doing, what you know you're doing from a marketing perspective. We don't have that visibility to be able to overlay into this, but that individual comparison is where those sort of that next level of analysis would come from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, we will close that item. This is just an information item. Thank you, Ms. Olson. Thank you for all this on strategy team. Thank you for all your report. Great. All right, we are on to board member comments for future items and future discussions. Are there any discussions at this time for future items? Anything that we'd like to bring back for any future meetings? Seeing none, all right. We'll open our final public comment from the floor. Any public comment? I have none signed in at this time. Seeing none, we are adjourned.